Welcome to Mission Farmstead, the farmstead of many missions. I'm Mike, and on today's episode, I have two missions for you. The first off is we're going to take this UTV and we're going to drive around this 77-acre farm because about 30 minutes ago, I had a land surveyor leave. So we're going to look at all the new spikes in the ground and the new boundary lines that we have on this small regenerative farm. And the second mission is we had, between 2 and 6 weeks ago, we had some areas that had deep gullies. And so we're going to do a progress report on those erosion fixes. Depending on when you watch this episode, you can go back in the catalog and see that mission itself. So let's go. So this is a very busy state road and I'm waiting for some of these cars to go by. But let me talk about why we did this survey in the first place. Well, the first reason is I never done a survey. This farm, when I bought it 3 years ago, the last survey was done in the 70s. And so I bought it using the county's website. I was okay with it. But because we're transitioning this farm from a worn out row crop farm into a regenerative pasture where we're gonna raise pasture raised animals, I needed to eventually have some permanent fencing. And I thought, you know what would be a better time to do that than now? And so that's why I had a surveyor come out, but there's no cars. So I'm gonna jump out here and play a little Frogger with my life to show you these spikes in the ground. You can see, and then there's one down here too. So I'm gonna get off this busy road and then we'll walk down to see this other spike in the ground. All right, we are at the second spike. Right there's the flag behind me. And see if we can get across here. I have to be quick. As you can see there, we were up there. So we got between 400 and 500 feet of road frontage. See that spike? So yeah, we have between 400 and 500 feet of road frontage. And then this goes up in there. We'll go check it out. Okay, so we're on this side of the farm. Over there past this old brush is the road. But we're gonna go down there so we can see where I just was at. I'm on this side of the farm where the new pasture is going to be. And what I'm about ready to show you is the road. You see all these flags. So right where the neighbor's fence is, right here's the old spike in the ground. Show all the, and you might be able to see, it might not, but back there is the where they put the blue paint on the road where the spike is at. So let's go up the fence line and see how it looks. I'm gonna drive up the fence line. Wherever you see a pink ribbon spike is my new boundary line. Well, I shouldn't say new. It's always been there. It's just new to me. Let's go. So what you're probably noticing is that the neighbor's fence is in my property line. I'm not too stressed out about it because back in the day, I'm not for sure what they did, but all the fence is just bowed out, and you can tell that this fence needs repaired. So when we start to repair the fence, we can just put the fence on the property line using a chalk line in the future. Let's keep going. So you see where the new surveyor put the rod. The reason I know that the fence was just bowed, not maliciously, is because right where that rod is at the corner of this fence. So that was using GPS coordinates, and so I know it's damn accurate. And so when we fix the fence, like I said, we'll just adjust then. Let's keep going. Now this spike is right on the property line boundary. Let's go to the next one. That one's on the inside of the fence, so it means the fence is a little bit on my side. But as you'll see, this fence is falling down. It needs replaced really, really bad. Now this is the end of the neighbors right in front of me, and then this begins the neighbors that are beside her. So there's some old fencing that fell down. Here's the corner, but my property line is right there. Oh, look what I just discovered. So there's more fencing through here. So the old timers had it right when they did the fencing. It's just all these trees have grown up so much. So the farm that I had now, I was told that 75 years ago is when it was right around 1950. Now, I don't know this to be true, but this is what I was told. Is when this farm was converted from a cattle farm over to row cropping. So right after World War II, when you started having all that industrial equipment from World War II coming into agriculture. Let's keep going, look at the rest of the spikes. So I requested that the land surveyor go every 100, 150 yards and put up a new pink ribbon and a new spike on the property boundary line, so when we run permanent fence, we know exactly where to go. Let's go check this one out. See, old barbed wire, some old fencing. It's like a blast from the past. You know, 75 years ago, I doubt this farm had the gullies that it had, that I just had fixed. We had gullies on a previous episode that was 6 to 7 feet deep just from row cropping, where they just never did a cover crop, and topsoil washed away, probably even some of the subsoil had washed away, but that's changing with me as the operator. Let's keep going. So we are at our next 2 ribbons, but we are at our first erosion fix. So let's go look at these ribbons first on the property line, and then I'll show you the first erosion area. You may be able to see the pink flag back in there. I'm not going to go through there because I don't know if the recording will do it justice, but where that ribbon is to where I'm standing, it's probably 20 to 30 feet. So just over the years of the weeds just encroaching more and more on the open land, you know, it never got fixed. But if you do that 20 to 30 feet around what I believe is the 77 acres, we'll find out if it's more or less once the complete survey comes in. That's quite a bit of land that we'll gain back by moving some of that fence back. But let's have a look at the first area of erosion that we fixed. Now this was done between 2 and 3 weeks ago. So what had happened here is all of this water would come down this way. So it started to wash out a lot of the land over here. And so what we had to do is we had to slow down. What I learned from Joel Salatin, there's 2 things with erosion that happens. One is the speed of the water, and it's the volume of water is the second. And so what we tried to do with these rip wraps is that we wanted to slow it down, so as it goes back in here, it slows down anymore. But what we did in the field is we fixed it, put in some topsoil, and then you see the lagoons that are growing, and then we have some grasses coming up. Now the pasture grasses are not going to come up because they're cool season, and as you can see, it's pretty warm out here right now. So those will come up probably later this fall, definitely next year. It'll be really thick because I probably put a little too much on this area, but I wanted to make sure that it was good. But the cowpeas, that's what these are. That is a warm season nurse crop because we're fixing erosion, spending the money to do it. I didn't want to have it all wash away again. So we were at the corner of our property. We started way back there at the road, and now we are at the far corner. Let's go back in here, check it out. It's easy for me to identify where the property line is now that it's there. It looks like a no-brainer because the old timers put up the fence, and wherever the fence was, most likely was where the property line is, and that's the case right here. So the surveyor found this spike in the ground. Not necessarily a spike, it's just a piece of metal. Not for sure what it is. But right there's the corner of my property. And you can tell that the old timers knew this because here are the fence posts for the cattle. It's even more fascinating as you have all this fence. This looks like an 8-inch post, and then you had your 6 inches. The old timers, I think even people today still use 8-inch pieces on the corners. But it's nice to know exactly where my property line is now. Got a lot of these old T-posts in the ground. Only if these posts could talk. I think it would be so fascinating just to learn. I mean, they're supposedly 75 years old. That's crazy. That is so crazy. Okay, off to the next one. Let's go. I'm most excited about this next area because I haven't been down in here yet. So I'm walking down this hill. It goes into a creek area. I'm not for sure our boundary line. I have a hunch where it's at, but I'm interested because, as the surveyor said, the land's always been there, but through perception and having all this extra brush grown, it makes it perceive it like it's much bigger property than I originally thought. So let's walk down here together. You can lead the way. Do you see the pink ribbon? Right there it is. Now there's some barbed wire right there that looks rather new. Some of that other fencing, oh gosh, you can tell. Right there's an old post. Interesting. I just think this is so fascinating. Just to see and think about who was here, who walked on this land before I did. Really, really cool. Now, in a previous episode earlier in this year, I invited Joel Salatin to come out and we walked these woods together. So it's kind of cool to be like Joel Salatin, the godfather of regenerative farming, was here. If you haven't watched that episode yet, there was 12 secrets that he taught me about regenerative farming that I did not know that I could use here on this farm. Definitely, after this video, go check that out. Okay, we're getting close to the creek. So we're pretty far back here in the woods. This is pretty fascinating. That here's the stake. I'm gonna take you back how I came in. You can just see how dense it is. What I'd like to do is get some in here and get some of these privet bushes out of here one day. That way we can start taking this from dirt to grasses, let stuff start growing up a little bit back in here. We're coming up on a new field. Next up, we're approaching The second erosion fix. That looks good. Coming up really well. That was only a couple weeks ago we planted this. If you haven't done so already, go check out the video I did with Joel Salatin in the category and just see how bad and how deep the gullies were that went through here before we fixed this. Once we get this really solid base of grass coming up, now I planted this with all the pasture seed that are cool seasons. What you see now are the warm seasons, Johnson grass and the cowpeas. But there's many other species. I believe there's between 8 and 10 that are in here that will come up either this fall or next spring that are cool season species. And this will be so lush and so thick, I would venture to say it would look a lot like all this Johnson grass here. Just how thick that Johnson grass is. So, all right, let's go check out the next post. So this is the next spike in the ground that I wanted to see, because this opens up the whole new field, and then there's another highway over there. But what's interesting is right here, it proves to me that all these trees are mine, and all these trees down here in this tree line fence row is mine too. This gap was opened up. The story I heard there was this was opened up because the folks who used to farmed this before I purchased it. I love history, and it's really cool that I own a piece of history. It's all over my face how much I love history. You can see. Let's keep going. Standing at the edge of the field, you can see way back in there, there's some clearing. It's probably between 50 and 75 feet away. I see the flag. But you can just see how much growth has come this way from the property line. It just continues to encroach. Here's a perfect example. You see how that privet bush has went from here over, because it's trying to get sunlight out here in the field. Now right back here in this corner is my neighbor's property. I walked back there. What I discovered is that the property line was like right at the back of their house. For their privacy, I'm not going to show that corner, but it is back there about 70 feet back in. That is crazy to think just how far back that the property line is and how much all these trees have just encroached and how much more field we have. This is very exciting to me. We are at the third of 5 erosion fixes. Look at all this lush green grass that's growing up. It wasn't like this when Joel Salatin was here. We had gullies forming, and I had to put logs up here in the field so that when the water came down, it wouldn't wash all the topsoil away, because there was no cover crop last year for this section of the field. And so we fixed all this. Look, I mean, this side and that side. Let's walk down here and just see how it looks. So we put this basin in right here of rock. You can see the terrain, everything washes down in here. So we put this basin in to capture water. You can also tell that we're capturing a lot of silt as well, but at least it's not getting washed down into the creek and wherever this goes. I like this. Granted, you do see some water through here. We have gotten so much rain that as of this recording, it's rained the last 7 days. And not just like a tenth, but like an inch, a half an inch. And so we have a lot of rain. This section right here is a little bare, but I venture to say when it gets a chance to dry up a little bit, we could probably go a whole week for this to dry, and we'd start getting some grass to come up a little bit more. If anything, we'll get it to come up this fall, I'm certain. Now this has probably been about a month. So the cowpeas, being the warm season nurse crop, they came up really well. The deer love it. Taking you down here because I want to show you just how deep the gully is. Now from the corner of that tree down where my finger is, if you were stand there, you're looking at 3 to 4 feet deep. Before we fixed this, we were probably, I would have to look at the pictures, but it's definitely more than 4 feet. Definitely more than 4 feet. If you're a row cropper, cover crop your property. Cover crop your property. Because if not, you're going to be spending a fortune and replacing and fixing those erosion. But also, I think of my land as my savings account and my operation as my cash flow for the business. Definitely. Unsolicited advice, don't want to tell you what to do, but I am going to tell you what to do. Cover crop your property. These big trees go around this property line everywhere except up by my neighbor's fence in the very front. This tree is every bit, it goes from here to here. It's got to be a couple hundred years old. I don't know the history on it, but it'd be really fascinating because these trees, these big oak trees, are all over this property. And I think back in the day what they did is they used these big trees as boundaries when the Europeans was moving west. I heard that because the government was giving away land to go west, the Europeans were coming this way. And so I bet these trees were the boundaries a couple hundred years ago, 1700s, 1800s, maybe not 1700s, but definitely 1800s. I just want to show you how big this tree is. I'm gonna find a spot to stand. I'm a big boy, but this tree's way bigger. So, without getting in all the poison ivy, over here where my left hand is, that's the edge of this tree. You can see that I have to reach all the way out, get to the other side of the tree. I would venture to say it's 4 feet wide, maybe 5 feet wide. It's a big tree. So we were just here at this big tree. Right there's that big tree. There's the UTV. Or at least 50 feet away from that UTV. That's just how much all this has encroached over the years. Here's more examples of these big trees that probably were used as boundary lines. Right there is the property line. So we're here at the very back of the property. Here's another example of the property line being trees a couple hundred years ago. This branch broke off. Just look how big it is. Most trees are that big. And with GPS coordinates, that makes perfect sense. That tree is probably 200 years old. Maybe even the Native Americans put it there. I don't know if it was the Native Americans or the English settlers, but that's an old tree. I'll show you some more. So I'm back here on the back side of the property, and we are at another corner right over here. And I was told that there was a unique corner piece, but again, there's a flag, there's a big tree right there. That tree's probably 3.5, you know, small compared to the others. Yeah, I was told that this piping was put here as a spike back in the day. It's pretty interesting to see. This even looks like some old tape on there too. Of course, this pink stuff is the new. And start to see another big tree. So we're right here. Let's see if I can get that. So there's the big tree to go that way, and now we're at the cornering off. We're going that way. Big tree. That tree right there, the tree behind it. They're not as old as these ones back here. I'd say those are maybe 75 years. I don't know. Pretty fascinating. Come up here, see if we can see some fencing. Yeah, there's some right there. Some fencing from the old timers. Ah, so cool. Oh, another tree that's probably 75 years old. We definitely got some good tree value here out of this property. Not that I would ever cut them down and sell them, but they're definitely there. Pretty cool. More evidence, either the Native Americans or the English settlers used trees for property line. There's a big one. And GPS satellite has our property boundary line right there. You know what's really fascinating is that this is just the early stages of me transitioning this farm from pasture, or from a worn out row crop to regenerative pasture. So when you subscribe, you'll get to see what it's like transitioning over. It'd be super cool for you to follow along. So hit subscribe if you haven't already and follow along on this journey. Maybe you can even do it to your property. It'd be pretty cool. We don't have enough evidence now. There's another tree that's probably 4 feet wide, and then there's the property line boundary. So cool. I'll show you something else. About 15 months ago, this big tree, which is also about 4 feet wide, the limb broke. Came all the way out here in the field. I didn't have my tractor at the time, so I came out here with a chainsaw, and I chainsawed it all, put it in a pile. But this is just a branch. I fell off that tree right there, and here's where it laid. As I previously mentioned, I'm a pretty big guy. Just look how big this tree trunk is. It's gigantic. Found this back in the woods. It says, looks like DURAQLAS 59 to the right, L 183 G256. I don't know. That's kind of cool. I mean, not for sure what would be in it, but an old timer back in the day has clearly left this here in the woods, or they were back here doing something. So it's just really cool. So what I'm about ready to show you is the first erosion fix. It was 6 weeks ago when we did it. This was the area that Joel Salatin, in that video of his farm consult, where he said, hey, there's a lot of locust trees here that you could use for fencing. So let me show you. Look how beautiful this has become. Now, we have pasture grasses planted, but don't forget those are cool season, and what you see here are warm season that come up. We have a lot of Johnson grass, and we have cowpeas. Cowpeas were the nurse crop, and that was the brush that we ended up burning when we took all this out. Now, where I'm standing right here was how far the trees were out. So it was about right here, and then we moved all this back. This was a really deep gully, and it was eroding all the way up there, and it was coming down through here. Now let's go check out the work since it's been done. We've been getting some serious rain, and look at this. This is where the path of the water is. Now you can see where it's a little thin out, but remember, we're getting a lot of rain and we have quite a bit. There's no erosion happening anymore. This grass is about knee high. But you can see down here with the cowpeas how they're kind of yellow. They've been flooded with water. Let's put it that way. We put all this riprap through here to slow down the velocity of water, because you can see through here. Now where you see down there, that is every bit of 6 to 12 feet. I mean, it's a lot of just erosion that's happened over the years. That's 75 years of just tilling the land, taking monocrops off and then not putting a cover crop down. I don't think monocrop is sinful. I just think if you don't cover crop, you're going to lose all your topsoil. When the Native Americans were here, or when the English settlers moved west, up there's my UTV. I would have ventured to say that we've probably lost a couple feet or several feet of topsoil over the years, because this is valleyed out so much and it's all come this way. But where you see all this grass and the rock is when we first started establishing the grass. After we had finished the erosion fix, it was washing down into this rock through here. But now it's definitely changed. I'm really proud of the excavators who did it. So shout out to you, Kendall and Richard Vilvins. So you guys rock. Let's go. This was the 4th erosion fix. We'll circle back around on the farm. We'll see the 5th and final. But before we see the 5th and final erosion fix, we still got one side of the property to check out the survey lines. Let's go. We're out here in the clearing, so we're just going to go and look at it together right along this fence line. There's another big oak tree that's every bit of 4 to 5 feet wide. I'm convinced these oak trees were definitely property lines way back when. All the way down this fence line are just big oak trees. You'll see. Now this one splits these two trees. Me and my neighbor, we share those. Well, it's safe to say that we've come full circle on this farm. The last thing we got to do is go check out the 5th and final erosion fix. So we're here at the 5th and final erosion fix. Now this is less than 3 weeks old, so it doesn't look as good as the 4th one that was the oldest 6 weeks old, but this one's making progress. What's fascinating is these are all cowpeas. When I was using the broadcast spreader, I definitely put way too much down, but it's changing. It was mainly this side over here that we fixed, because this was all trees, and we ended up taking these down and then going further back. So let's walk and see. Got a lot of cowpeas and some Johnson grass coming up. Back through here, there's not a lot of there's a lot of shade, so it doesn't get full sun, but it'll come up. It'll come up nice and good this fall. We'll be really happy with it. I've planted all the species, so I know the species for pasture will be here. It'll take time. We'll get there. So why did the land surveyor take a ladder to the field with him? Wondering why? Because he wanted to take his measurements to the next level. Yeah, that's as good as it gets, folks. That's really bad. I know it's really bad. Well, we made a full circle back here to the workshop where we started. On today's mission, we got to see the old property lines, which were those oak trees 3 to 5 feet wide. We got to see the new property lines. Well, technically they've always been there, just new to me. Those new spikes in the ground every 100 to 150 yards. And we got to see all 5 of 5 erosion fixes that we've been working on from 2 to 6 weeks ago. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I sure had fun making it, so we'll see you on the next one.